I'm Ale.
And I'm Andre.
We're both facilitators.
And we do things a bit differently.
These are our memoirs.
And we want you to be a part of them.
We hope you enjoy this episode.
This is Facilitators Memoirs, where we break the rules and make the magic happen. The art of guiding chaos into clarity, turning dead-end discussions into breakthroughs, and making collaboration actually work. Sounds interesting? Then come join us. Let's get disruptive.
Hello.
Hello, Ale. Hello, everyone listening.
So good to be once again with you, Andre.
Yeah.
Not only to be once again with you, but to be once again in a place.
It feels familiar.
It feels familiar for us. The first time that we're coming once again to a restaurant because it was so good.
It was so good.
So good, oh my God.
I told Ale, it was my turn to pick the place, and I told Ale, listen, I know we've been to this place before.
Your mouth was already watering.
I was craving it. I think it's been half a year.
Yeah.
A couple of episodes since we've been here. Chinese Sichuan food, right?
But every single time so worth it. Such good meat, such good environment also around with the people, and so just so nice food altogether.
It's the perfect place to do what we're doing now.
It's absolutely the place.
We're both happy people with big smiles on our faces because we just had an incredible meal.
Because food.
And it was also a special meal in the sense that today, Ale and dear listeners, is our season finale.
Season finale. Make sure that you understand the part of season and not series. There is no series finale for this one. But we wanted to also come to a moment to a season.
Nowhere near finished with what we have to say, but we did like the idea of maybe calling it a season, calling it season 1, having a set number of episodes, and then maybe taking a small little break to, kind of reflect, listen back, see which direction we want to take this podcast. We do want to safely tell you that we will be continuing. There's no question.
Of course. There's no question that we will continue. Just like good facilitation, there is an opening, a beginning at the beginning. There is the session itself, and there is a closure. There's always good space for the three phases of the process, right?
Every session needs to find an end.
Exactly.
But also, an end doesn't need to be final.
And that's important. That's already an important remark. You see, people, whenever we have good food, we have very good remarks. Every good session has a good beginning, but not necessarily an end by itself. We're going to talk a little bit about that today.
I think that's something we both think is worth spending a bit of time on.
Yeah.
And a very fitting topic for the end of our season, our first season. Every session that you start, you then go through, and at some point you have to finish because we're not going to live together with our participants, right? We're not going to have an infinite number of time together.
We would love to be with the participants forever, but then we lose the opportunity.
I want some privacy
to meet other participants. Exactly. Yeah.
I want some privacy at some point, but yeah, it's an important aspect of any type of session, regardless of the target group.
Yeah.
If you're a facilitator, you need to spend time thinking about how you want to close a session. And if you've been listening to our episodes by now, you should know that our style requires us to be a little bit flexible with our structure, with our timing, and it's an interesting discussion on how that fits with having closure, having an ending point to a session, because one might ask, if we're not over planning, how do we know when we want to end the session? How do we know how we're going to end the session? Is it something we can prepare in the beginning? Is it something we want to prepare in the beginning?
Or even our listeners could be thinking, well, these guys are never coming to an end. They basically just continue the whole session for forever. They run over their time, and then they stay with the participants until the end of time. And it's not like that, is it?
And honestly, I feel like our introduction needs an end at some point as well. So let's practice that idea of closure here and start getting on topic, because I think there's a lot to unpack here, and we want to kind of touch on the topic on a little bit different levels.
Yeah.
So maybe it makes sense for me to start.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit, Andre, from your point of view, what kind of activities or what kind of things you like to do for closure of sessions when you're facilitating?
Yeah. I think, oftentimes in episodes in the past, I've picked a specific target group. Also, often my work with kids and youth or with refugees and migrants and what I've done in the past. I think this is a universal thing where I can kind of generalize it a little bit.
Yep.
Because any session I'm doing, it's important to finish on a high note.
Yeah.
And the way we finish the session, I think, is really crucial to also how my participants evaluate the session and what it meant to them and what they're taking away from it, and also if there's any kind of continuation to what we experienced together.
If there's a follow-up, exactly.
If there's a follow-up, if there's an extension, if they're continuing that journey outside of the space that I've created for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much something that I can enable and I can influence through the way that I close the session.
Yeah.
So I think it's no surprise that at the end of a session, facilitators enjoy getting feedback.
Yeah, knowing whether the session was well, whether what we perceived, at least from our side, was also perceived by the participants. Because most of the time, facilitators were super happy about what happened, but then we are disconnected from reality and we don't know how it was also for participants. So we need to check with them.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our own head.
Exactly.
We're looking at people, we're gauging how well they're participating. How
seeing their body language.
Yeah. We're collecting cues, but we can't read minds.
Exactly.
At least I can't read minds. Can you read minds?
I cannot, so we have to double check.
I can barely read my own mind, so reading other people's minds is definitely off the table. So what we need to do is we need to facilitate the process of getting an idea of how people, how their experience was.
Yeah, and in a more realistic point of view, right? In a way that it can be most useful for everyone with critical feedback.
Yes, I like the way you just put that. Useful for everyone because, listen, okay, so for me, I like to keep a little bit of flexibility with regard to the end of a session.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the process is so amazing and engulfing and has so many, turns and twists that I didn't expect that I want to incorporate and spend time on.
Right.
So sometimes that naturally leads to a tight ending.
No.
So I like to have kind of two options. So my less ideal option, my time-saving option is I'm asking everybody three things. And everybody's getting a piece of paper, a small piece of paper, and they're going to write it down for me.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm a big fan of keeping things simple. I think this is nothing new to anybody who's dealt with facilitation, what I'm about to say. This is classic feedback methodology. But I think it works, and it keeps it simple. Name one thing you enjoyed about the session.
Is there one thing that stays?
One thing you think can be improved.
Something that can improve.
And I consciously say not one thing that didn't go well or that you didn't like.
In a positive note.
On a positive note, and also on a constructive note, because that's oftentimes where I'm getting feedback that helps me improve sessions down the line.
And it's very important to also say that. They can say something that was negative, but try to formulate it in a way that can be useful for us so that we can grow out of it, right?
Oh, that's interesting because I don't say that at all. I just say what's one thing that could be improved.
That could be improved.
And I don't go on, I don't even say the word negative.
Yeah.
But also very conscious decision of saying one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying name a couple of things or what did you, like an open-ended question of what did you think went well.
Give me 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
No, just one thing, please. And that also puts the participants in a situation of maybe they have 2 or 3 things, but they have to sit there and find one. And that ends up being, I think, also a little bit more deliberate and valuable.
Yeah.
Because they've also made an effort to choose that one thing and thought about it a little bit more than maybe they would have if they have 2 or 3 selections.
Prioritize it on top. Yeah.
They've also kind of evaluated it in their head and prioritized, exactly. No. So I'm asking for one thing that went well, one thing that can be improved, and one thing they took away from the session. And if I'm tight on time, I'm giving them that as an individual activity. Okay, so it's just an individual activity, everybody's writing it. I may not have even time for anyone to share. If there is time for sharing, maybe only 1 or 2 people can share. That's something where oftentimes I would also choose not sharing at all over having 1 or 2 people, because I feel like if you're asking 1 or 2 people to share and then saying, okay, we have no more time for the rest to share, I think that's
that gives a bad impression, right?
It leaves a little bit of a bad taste. Right?
So, and with that also, if it's written, the facilitator can basically take it with themselves and you can read it after the session, and then you're not using the time also of the session.
Right, exactly. You're not using much time from the session to gather that feedback. But I'm getting feedback. And then maybe I'll have a finishing, comment or maybe an open-ended question where I do leave 5 to 10 minutes for people to answer and engage with each other, because I do ultimately want some form of engagement between the participants and myself at the end of the event.
Yeah. I think it's very important what you're saying from the point of view, Andre, that many people maybe that participated at some point in facilitation or have been in trainings, they might think that it's the whole ego of the facilitator of trying to listen to something positive about themselves or about the session, right? Maybe that's why they ask at the end that what happened during the session and everything, when in reality what we're trying to ask is how was it for you, so that we can understand how to get better also in the future, right? It's not our ego talking, it's actually us talking with the participants, having a dialogue also with them to understand what went well for them and what can still be improved for the next time, right?
And doing that way, I'm facilitating a reflective moment.
A reflective moment. That's what I want to
in the space I created.
So we're creating reflection by doing the whole process.
And that's something that I feel like gives them an opportunity to begin the reflection and to open that process. And I feel like at least this is how it is when I attend sessions, myself as not a facilitator but as a participant, is if I'm given the opportunity to reflect at the end of the session through a feedback or whatever, it kind of kickstarts a process where I continue that reflection later on my own time.
That's right, because at the very beginning, most likely we started with a big bang or something that was a lot of energy at the beginning. The whole session was a little bit like managing the energy that we have discussed also in other episodes. But then when we come to the end, we want to have a little bit of time for them to reflect, for the whole group also to think a little bit about what happened, but then also to make a very conscious decision about what you just said. What is going to be next? What are the next steps that I'm going to be doing with the knowledge that I now have, with the experiences that I have discovered also during this session today, and that I'm going to be taking back home, and how I'm going to be putting them into practice, right?
Because that's the ideal, right? That it's not just a learning experience for those 2 to 3 hours that we're together,
Absolutely.
but that we're kind of, breaking something open that can continue to be a well of learning.
Yeah.
The gift that keeps on giving, as we once said so well, right?
Exactly, yes.
And if I do have more time, which is what I'm going for most of the time in a session, I open up that process. So I ask people individually, because I feel like that works well, give people 5 minutes
to
reflect on their own, in their own headspace, and then who wants to share?
Yeah, just popcorn style.
That's the ideal, to have people then open up and share, not what went well or what can be improved, but only, this is at least how I do it, only what they took away.
Yes, exactly, the fourth.
Because that's the resume, that's the summary of the event, and then that's something where I'm not recapping what we did today, but it's coming from them.
Yes.
And it's also stuff that has a personalized touch to it, because it's gone through somebody's own headspace. And I feel like that's where sometimes a lot of the real click moments happen.
Right, because it's very different from the moments where facilitators say, so we learned today about this A, B, and C, and the facilitator is the one saying it. Yeah. So you are just sitting there and saying like, okay, facilitator, if that's what you think we learned, that's what we learned. But it's very different when the participant themselves, they are basically saying it with their own words, with their own understanding of the process. This is what I learned, this is what I take out of the session, right?
And the whole reason I'm doing that is the energy it creates.
Exactly.
We've had activities throughout the whole session creating this social bond with people working together, collaborating, having that space of togetherness, and that's one last escalation of that feeling.
Right, because you want to end the person with that big note.
Right, and that energy will take them out of the session feeling good, feeling like there was time well spent,
right,
and with very concrete thoughts. Somebody said something that was interesting to me, and now I hadn't thought about it that way, and all of a sudden these thought processes are kickstarted. And just to wrap up kind of my little view on this, so just to clarify what I've been trying to say here is, I love simple methods done very deliberately. And I think that's why the method I could have just described in a minute. But I'm really going into depth on what it means to me, how I'm using it, and the value it brings if done well. Because it really is so crucial to end the session well. And another thing that is something that I find very important is to finish on time. And that's something I noticed that not all facilitators either do such a good job of, because it is difficult. It's time management at its best and at its hardest. But I feel like it has to do with respecting the time of the participants.
You want to take them also for a ride, so you are taking them in the ride, during the ride, and you want to take them back home at the right time so that they can also continue their lives.
And I feel like that also, absolutely, and I feel like that also enhances the energy and the vibe.
Yeah.
Because I'm committing to this session for 3 hours, and that's kind of what I'm mentally prepared for. And now you're asking 3.5 hours.
You cannot be focused on it.
It may be a nice session, but maybe I had plans afterwards.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's a bit too much. I'm a bit tired at the end, and I just want to have that clean cut, that kind of that informal contract we made in the beginning,
Right.
saying this is what we're going to do together for this period of time, and
Right.
I'm honoring that by finishing punctually.
Because that's the gift that the participants are actually giving us. They come with a gift of time, and we use that, and we promise them that in that period of time we're going to try to do our best to learn something, to grow together, to be there present, right?
Right.
So that's basically the tacit agreement that we have.
And something that I'm not as good at as you are, but we both agree is very important, is what happens after the session.
Yes,
And I
that's
feel
the
like
same
you
thing.
are an expert at that. So how do you do that, and what do you focus on when it comes to
Well,
that?
the magical part about not just the part of finishing. So let's start from the very beginning with this part, right? The most important thing is to remember that learning is not encapsulated in a training. It starts with us motivating a little bit of conversation, motivating the session and everything. People being curious about the topic, learning something maybe by collectively having the process with us. But it's very clear also for us that the learning cannot finish at the end of the session. We need to make sure that it closes from the point of view of the training, but we also have to leave some opportunities for our participants to continue their learning, to continue doing things, right? So one of the first things that we have to remember as facilitators is have a very clear mindset, and also maybe even have a notebook in case that any promise that you create during the session that you cannot fulfill until the end of the session,
Right.
you make it happen.
Right.
Hey, something that you said, I'm not so sure about it, but I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna find you some resources. I'm gonna find you some material on that. You make a little note so that you can remember at the end of the session, I have to come back to this participant with this information.
Because that participant will remember
Exactly.
and will feel seen and also respected.
Yes, exactly.
And honored
Yeah.
by the fact that you remembered.
And we have to remember also facilitation is also creating an experience for our participants. Who are our customers in this case? Our participants, right? So we're giving them the opportunity of going through a process where they're feeling valued, that they're feeling seen. And that comes together also with us honoring any promise that we are that are happening in the session. And it can be coming from the facilitator, but it can also come from another participant. So making sure that by the end of the session, we honor those commitments, right? That we honor whatever we said. We can also even say, right, there are a couple of things that we have to follow up. So the most important thing is after any session finishes to make sure that we send an email or we send some type of communication, depending on how we were
Right.
working with the participants, to let them know all the materials that we use, anything that could be useful for them, slides that they can use, more materials that they can use also so that they can keep digging into the topics.
And is it important to do that in a timely fashion? So like to do it relatively quickly after
Yes.
the workshop, or is
Because
that not so important?
We have to remember that we took them into the ride, and then when we left them at the end of that ride, if we come back to them 1 month afterwards, that process has been interrupted. So we
Right.
want to get them when the energy, when the motivation is already there.
Right.
So 1 week or a couple of days maximum is basically what is recommended in these kind of cases. And the most important thing with this is that it's one email where I'm going to put everything that is necessary.
Okay.
We do not
Keep it
send
compact.
exactly. We don't send 3 messages and 4 messages and then one message where we're basically thanking the participants for the activity, thanking everyone for being there and being honest and sharing also their point of view and everything, and then giving all the links that they might require, all the materials that they might require. And then something also important is in some cases there are some connections that are created during the session to make sure also that we make the networking possible, right? That we maybe saw that there is one participant that could see a lot of value of communicating with another participant, so to make sure that those introductions actually happen. In my case, for example, I use it a lot also for LinkedIn, or I use also other spaces where those things can happen.
Can you touch on that a little bit more? Because
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So if there's a moment in the session where you feel like two people have value in connecting more with each other,
Yeah.
you also make a note of that.
We can
and you make an active effort after the workshop to put them in contact with
So
each other.
there's a couple of things that you can do during the session. If you observe that it's happening in that moment, you can make sure that connection happens by the end of the session.
Okay.
But if for whatever reason it doesn't happen, most of the time the facilitator is the point of contact for many other people to come back. So I've been having many instances where participants come back to me and they remind me, hey, do you remember this one person? I would like to be in touch with them. Can you share the contact? So I talk to the person, may I share your contact? And then I try to make that connection happen. That is also part of the learning, right? Being in contact with people that I felt very comfortable with and having that connection happening all together. So the most important thing with all these activities or all these things that we do after the session is to create or recreate the illusion that the learning, that the nice atmosphere that we created during the session does not have to finish. It can continue, we can keep in touch, and maybe even more collaborations can happen in the future, but then also many other opportunities where we can facilitate or we can be together, all together in touch with one another also to take it.
And I think that's a wonderful thing that I don't have such a big focus on, which granted is perhaps a flaw, but it's just my style, I guess.
I think it's many of our styles also as facilitators. We focus a lot on the session by itself, but we forget that what we created was a moment for connection for people, and that moment for connection cannot stop during the session. It has to continue somehow.
Right.
And following up a little bit with that, even with small gestures of connection, of networking, makes a big difference also for participants.
I think also the reason, or one of the, just a thought, but like maybe why you have more of a focus on it than I do is maybe because I have more recurring groups.
Yeah.
For example, all the kids in youth work,
They're going to see themselves.
They're going to see each other over and over again. It's not such a limited one-time thing.
Yeah.
And the connections have time to develop, the follow-ups.
Right.
I follow up basically at the beginning of the next session.
Right.
So I'm connecting the new session to the last session.
Right, exactly, true.
And so I don't have so much, I don't place so much importance on what's happening after the session because I know there's going to be a next session most of the time.
Yeah.
But I think that's really valuable input that you're giving, and I think it also, having worked with you and seen the effects of it, I think it works really well in empowering people to take more from the session than just what they learned during those couple of hours.
And to feel connected with the facilitators,
and
right?
to feel connected. And you're really, and that's what I wanted to touch on as well, is you're really creating new nodes of connecting points and community, and really continuing our philosophy of putting the people and the person and the humanity in at the core of the work.
Which brings us to a very good point for closing very slowly our session for today. That facilitation creates community, and community never finishes with the session, right? It's all connected, and the more we keep seeing the people, the more we keep in touch with the people, the more we can grow all of us together.
So what I want you to do, dear listeners, is to take a piece of paper
right now,
to write one thing that this season you think went well, one thing we can improve on, and one thing you took away.
Let us know, because it's very important for us. Once again, not for our ego, but for the growth of the community.
For the fun of it, if you feel like indulging in that stupid comment, leave a note in the comments. We would love to hear some feedback on what you thought about season 1. We've had an absolute blast doing this.
Absolutely.
Also connecting with some fans in person, which we will continue to do as well. We are more than open to suggestions for new topics for season 2. So hit us up with any ideas. And yeah, this ride is going to continue. It's been an absolute pleasure to do it with you, Alejandro, it's been an absolute pleasure to come back to this amazing Chinese place today again.
Yes, absolutely. That's the most important part.
I can't wait for all the great food we're going to have during season 2.
And for our dear listeners, 2026 comes with a lot of projects and ideas also from Andrew and my side. Looking forward to creating a little bit more community, to connect once again with all of you, and to keep this growing, because again, this doesn't finish.
And we're staying busy. We're always going to be working as facilitators. We're always going to be getting new impulses, new experiences that will enrich this podcast. And yeah, we look forward to continue this journey with each other, and hopefully with you as a listener.
And we hope we bring every single time more and more value to each of all of you. Let's exercise our process of finishing on time and properly the session then, Andre.
Very important. We respect you, we respect each other.
And your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
See you in season 2.
Bye!